Tracking the Tropics, powered by Bose Electric, will begin momentarily. Tracking the Tropics, powered by Bose Electric, will begin momentarily. Tracking the Tropics, powered by Bose Electric, will begin momentarily. Live from our hurricane headquarters with real-time analysis from some of the nation's top meteorologists, this is Tracking the Tropics, powered by Bose Electric.
Tropical Storm Idalia getting stronger, ready to emerge in the Gulf of Mexico with the latest models all pointing towards the state of Florida. The question is exactly where? Will it be the Panhandle? Could it make a Ian-like turn and hit the Tampa Bay area? We're live tonight in the Stream Center to answer your questions on Tracking the Tropics, powered by Bose Electric. Hello there to you folks. A special Sunday night edition of Tracking the Tropics with WFLA Max Defender 8 Chief Meteorologist Jeff Baradelli, myself, JB Biunno. Want to make an important note before we look at the latest track, the latest spaghetti models, where Idalia is expected to head tonight. Here's the thing to make very, very clear. This kicks off multiple days of coverage. Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. We are going to have you covered as we keep eyes, all eyes really, on Idalia. Jeff, a lot to talk about on this particular episode. Let's get right to it. Let's send you over to the wall and look at exactly what we're talking about here on satellite, and then the latest track also tonight here in the Stream Center.
Yeah, so I think we have to make clear that this is a serious situation, that it does look like it's going to be a hurricane. that it's conceivable that it will hit us directly in the Tampa Bay area, especially the Nature Coast, and that regardless of whether it hits us directly or not, even if it hits Cedar Key, the Big Bend, we're still going to get a significant, I mean very significant amount of storm surge. So first I want to back up for a second, and I want to show you the forecast from the National Hurricane Center on just how much surge we can see. Now this is on top of a supermoon. On Wednesday, as luck would have it, everything is luck, right? Unfortunately, this is going to coincide, the landfall of Idalia is going to coincide with the supermoon and already elevated tides about a foot above where they would normally be. You have to add that to these numbers right here. So the storm surge forecast for St. Mark's all the way down to around Chesawitzka, so about Bayport in Hernando County, 7 to 11 feet. That is a lot of storm surge. What does that mean to you? That means that if you've seen flooding in the past 30 or 40 years on your property, you'll likely see it again. That means people who have boats on bayous or on the intracoastal, really isn't necessarily an intracoastal there, but anywhere on the waterways, you very well could see those boats in your backyard. I just want to let you know it's likely we're going to see water in homes anywhere near the immediate coast here. All the way down into, I'd say, even in Pasco County. And here's the reason why. You can see that they're forecasting 5 to 8 feet of storm surge from Bayport down to about Anclote, so about Tarpon Springs. And then from Tarpon Springs south, all of Pinellas County, that means Madeira Beach, that means Clearwater Beach, all the way down into Tampa Bay and including Tampa Bay and south through Longboat Key, 3 to 5 feet of storm surge flooding is likely with this system as it moves in. And when is it going to happen? Likely that is going to be Wednesday morning, late Tuesday night, as I'll explain in a few seconds, and early on Tuesday morning for that particular high tide cycle. All right, so let's look at the storm. Now, it's been battling shear, which explains why there's a lot of thunderstorms on the south side, but not that many on the north side. However, right near the center of circulation, thunderstorms have just started blowing up. This could be a signal that it's starting to become a little bit better formed. As we zoom in, you'll see a lot of thunderstorms right near the center of circulation. It may or may not be the beginning of a strengthening of the system. All right, let's talk about what is out for us locally here in the Bay Area. Storm surge watch is in effect for all of the Bay Area. We told you about what we're expecting in terms of numbers. These are high numbers. Evacuation orders already beginning in some parts of our area, and they will follow in many parts of our area. A hurricane watch is in effect for, again, all of the Bay Area straight through the Big Bend. That's the Big Bend all the way over to Apalachicola. So let's show you the latest stats and the latest forecast track from the National Hurricane Center. It's strengthened a little bit since the last advisory. Winds are now 45 miles an hour. Pressure is 995, which is actually pretty low for a tropical storm with winds of 45 miles an hour. All right, let's follow it north and show you the official forecast track from the National Hurricane Center. By late Monday night and early on Tuesday morning, they have it forecast to become a hurricane already in the southern part of the Gulf of Mexico. As we head into Tuesday afternoon, this is when we expect to see tropical storm force winds moving through the Bay Area. Not in the morning when you wake up on Tuesday morning, but by lunchtime, tropical storm force winds will start moving in as some of those outer bands begin to move in. At this point, an 85-mile-an-hour storm is almost a Cat 2. As it passes by Tampa Bay, that's going to be Tuesday night into Wednesday morning. It likely will gain strength and become perhaps a Category 2 storm, then make landfall right around Cedar Key, give or take. And that's the center of the cone. And at this point, they are forecasting it to have winds of 100 miles an hour when it makes landfall. Now, I have to point out to you that we are on the eastern side of the cone. Tampa is in the cone. St. Petersburg, Clearwater, Newport Richey, Crystal River, you're especially in the cone. You remember last year, at 72 hours out, National Hurricane Center track had Fort Myers in the very eastern edge of the cone, and that's exactly where the storm went. So 60 to 72 hours out, the error in this forecast track from the National Hurricane Center is about 100 miles. So you should plan for this to shift. It may shift west, it may shift east, but it's not likely to stay exactly where it is right now. It is going to change as we get closer to the storm. So keep tuning in here and we'll keep you updated on that. All right, so let's show you the latest spaghetti tracks. And these spaghetti models are valid for what we call the 18Z models, which is the early afternoon models. The vast majority are exactly where the National Hurricane Center says that the storm should be. Somewhere right here, Apalachicola Bay, east to the Big Bend, over to the Cedar Key area. I can tell you that our in-house model, and I'm going to show you that, does have the storm making landfall further east than even Cedar Key. All right, let me show you the tropical storm force winds. So the probability that you will see tropical storm force winds, obviously along the coast, very likely. You go further inland into places like Polk County, Hardy, DeSoto, Highlands County, and it becomes a little less likely that you will see tropical storm force winds. When will those tropical storm force winds arrive in your area? Well, it's not Tuesday at 8 a.m. You wake up in the morning, we'll see some breezy or gusty winds, but not tropical storm force yet. That means gusts over 40 miles an hour. The tropical storm force winds are right here, so entering our area around lunchtime, and then everybody is in tropical storm force winds by Tuesday evening into Tuesday night. It's a fast-moving storm. It'll be in and out quick. Let me show you the wind gusts that we're expecting. Now, this is from our European model, and depending upon the actual eventual track of this system, of course, the European may be wrong, but the European has actually been incredibly consistent. And the National Hurricane Center's forecast track is very much in line with the European model. So let's show you. 8 a.m. on Tuesday, we're not yet in those tropical storm force winds which start around here, so around 35, 40 miles an hour. We're still in the yellow with those gusts to 25, 30 miles an hour. Here we are at 8 a.m. Let's push it forward now into Tuesday afternoon. Notice now we're fully in the 20-mile-an-hour winds, and some of us are starting to see those winds past 35, 40 miles an hour. Here we are at 8 p.m., and this red entering the coast around Longboat Key and just off the coast of Pinellas or along the coast of Pinellas, those are 50-mile-an-hour wind gusts starting to move in during Tuesday evening, so it really starts to take a downturn very quickly as we head into the evening on Tuesday. Everything's going to happen quickly because it's going to be moving very fast. Here we are fully engulfed in tropical storm force or even hurricane force winds as we head into the overnight. Late Tuesday night, early Wednesday morning, that purple indicating hurricane force winds. Again, with this particular track, the hurricane force winds would probably stay just offshore of most of our area, with maybe the exception of Citrus County around Crystal River. And the storm itself on the European makes landfall around Cedar Key, and that's what the National Hurricane Center says. Now, if we're having sustained winds of close to 75 miles an hour along the coast of Nature Coast and Pinellas County, that means we have gusts at least up to around 90 miles an hour or so. So just keep that in mind. Just because we're not getting sustained winds doesn't mean that we're not seeing those gusts past 90 miles an hour. I'm going to step out of the picture for just 1 second so I can advance my graphics. All right, there we go. And you can see that by Wednesday at 2 o'clock, everything's starting to improve. We still have some tropical storm force winds, but things are starting to improve. All right, future radar. And then we're going to get to some questions in a couple of seconds or so. All right, so this is a look at our in-house computer model. It is the latest run of the model, which just came out maybe a half hour ago. This is hot off the presses. Here we are at 8 a.m. on Tuesday, nothing yet. Here we are on Tuesday afternoon, the outer bands start moving, and that's when we start seeing those tropical storm force wind gusts. Here we are at 8 p.m., and there's a full-blown hurricane just off the coast, maybe 50 miles from Indian Rocks Beach. This is according to our latest in-house computer model, which is a pretty accurate computer model. Here we are at 8 p.m., lots of outer bands moving through. The worst of it, obviously, as we start to really get into the core of the storm just offshore, is Tuesday late in the evening, Tuesday night and Wednesday morning. And notice where landfall is, somewhere between Cedar Key and Crystal River. Crystal River, this puts you inside of the eye wall. So if this computer run is right, the Nature Coast, especially from anywhere around Bayport north, you could see sustained hurricane force winds, and then everybody else would see those bands with those tropical storm force winds sustained, but those gusts to about hurricane force. And you could see a lot of these bands continue through Wednesday morning and also into Wednesday afternoon as well. So even though the storm's moving fast, we'll still be stuck in bands for a while. I want to show you the waves and surge here. Look at those waves building offshore in the purple, close to around 30 to 40 feet way offshore. And notice the onshore flow starts to push in generally after midnight on Tuesday night. So it's really Wednesday morning. It's that tide cycle in the morning on Wednesday morning when we have this wind flow blowing into the bay, blowing up against our coast, 7 to 11 feet of storm surge, St. Mark's down to Crystal River, and Bayport south to Tarpon Springs 5 to 8. 3 to 5 feet of storm surge, Pinellas County and Tampa Bay. How much rain are we going to see? This is what a lot of people are interested in. They're hoping to get the rainfall, and we're going to get some. It really depends upon the exact track here, but the red indicating general 3 to 4 inches of rain, according to the European model. And this yellow indicating some areas will see 4 to 8 inches of rain along the immediate coast. We could use as much rain as we could get around here. I want to end with this, a graphic right here. It's quite astonishing. These are all the hurricanes that have come within 200 miles of Tampa Bay since 1950. As I zoom in, notice this right here. Over the past 70 plus years, there have not been any direct hits from Cedar Key all the way down to the very southern point of our viewing area, which is Venice. None, no direct hits, landfalls from the Gulf of Mexico. Yes, we've seen some hurricanes move through the interior areas. Charlie, Irma, Ian, especially across Polk County, Hardy, DeSoto, Highlands County, even southern Sarasota County has seen hurricane force winds. But in terms of a direct hit from the Gulf of Mexico, a landfall, we have not seen any in over 70 years. And JB, the reason why I bring that up is we have untested infrastructure, a lot of untested big oak trees, a lot of untested homes, and a lot of untested people. An inexperienced population directly here in the Bay Area has never experienced a landfalling storm.
You're, of course, talking about all the folks from the Northeast, Midwest who have moved down here in the last few years. Also, there's this myth, you know about it, that Native Americans protect Tampa Bay.
That's right.
When you talk to people out on the streets, whether it's at Publix, they say, nope, a hurricane will never hit Tampa Bay. The Native Americans will protect us. That is just the running joke in Tampa Bay. But this graphic is mind-blowing.
Isn't it?
Showing that we just really haven't had that direct hit.
We've been incredibly lucky here, but I will also kind of tease, JB, you know all about this. We are doing a study with Columbia University right now. So it's WFLA has partnered with Columbia University to do a study, and I actually am just starting to get those results to see if Tampa Bay has just been lucky or if this is a very typical climatology, if this is just normal for the Bay Area. We will have those answers for you within the next week or two, and we will, of course, tell you about it right here and also on television as well.
Yeah, be very fascinated by the results of that. Jeff Berardelli, JB Biunno here with you in the Stream Center. Jeff, if we could throw up the track.
Sure.
I know that a lot of folks out there have questions. I've been building up a queue of questions, but right now, if you use any of the hashtags on your screen, so that's hashtag HeyJeff or hashtag HeyJB, look, folks, the purpose of this program is, one, to inform you, and then two, to talk with you back and forth interactively to answer as many questions that we can. You want to know if it's going to hit your neck of the woods? We're going to talk about it as long as you provide us with a question on Facebook Live, Instagram Live, YouTube Live, other social media platforms. Just use one of the hashtags if you want us to pluck your comment out of the comment section. Jeff, let's get right into it.
Sure.
Use a hashtag, folks. Ask a question. It is that simple. And we're going to start here with Woods on the WMBB Facebook page. And actually, you know what? That's actually the wrong question. Hopefully we can get it loaded up.
You know what? I can tell Beth the answer to her question.
Yeah.
Which is, Wednesday morning's probably not a good morning to be leaving Tampa. I think it's going to be too stormy, and I don't know if they'll have the airport ready for you. So it may be a good idea to make early decisions, be proactive. This way you get the flight you need, be it Thursday or something. That's my advice on that one.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm loading up some more questions, but
Sure.
we had one about school closures.
Yeah.
We have a list of school closures on our website. But
I've heard that there are already, in fact, Hernando County, I think there's been some school closures there, but I don't know which of those school closures there are. But I know that we are putting that information on our website right now. And JB, while you're getting that, I want to show everybody just something I think so important, is everybody always looks at the middle of the cone. This was the National Hurricane Center cone, 72 hours before Ian made landfall. Now, you'll notice that the center of the line was right through the Big Bend. Right through the Big Bend area of Florida. Notice where the edge of the cone was, right over Fort Myers, okay? Now we'll go forward, and you can see that the center of the cone, 72 hours out, was about 220 miles away from Fort Myers. Now, Fort Myers was in the cone the whole time, but on the extreme eastern edge, and so a lot of people just thought Fort Myers is going to be fine, not going to be an issue. Well, it turned out that the storm did track on the very eastern edge of the cone, about 220 miles east of the center of the line, which goes to show you that there's a large error in these National Hurricane Center forecasts out 2 to 3 days ahead of time. Then one more thing I want to show you. The cone says nothing about impacts. Naples wasn't even in the cone, and they had 6 feet of storm surge and winds of 90 miles an hour. So the reason I bring that up is, and I know everybody here understands this already, but you know the track is going to change. It's not just if it'll change, it will change. So if you're thinking to yourself, well, Tampa, it's a pretty good bet. It's not coming here. St. Pete, Clearwater, probably not coming here. Newport Richey, probably not coming here. First of all, we'll still be on the dirty side of the storm. We're going to get tremendous impacts here, or at least very big impacts. And second of all, It may be coming here. We don't know. We are in fact inside the cone.
I was going to ask this question because we were talking, of course, about Ian around this time last year, of course, around the peak of hurricane season. And we were talking about how Ian, in that final, really 36 hours, Jeff, made that turn. Now that turn was still within the forecast cone,
That's
the
right.
National Hurricane Center's forecast cone. But Tampa is still in that cone, folks. So the Tampa Bay area is still very much in play. Tuesday night into Wednesday, of course, we're going to have episodes of Tracking the Tropics, throughout the day tomorrow, Monday, all day Tuesday as well. But now we actually had so many comments coming in that it kind of tripped up our system. Now we're going to get to your questions using hashtag HeyJB or hashtag HeyJeff. We're going to rattle through as many of these as possible, Jeff.
Okay.
And this first one comes in from the Panhandle, from WMBB. This is from Woods. Hashtag HeyJeff. What should Panama City expect?
You are not in a cone right now. And if the storm does head on the west side of that cone, sure, you would experience some pretty significant weather, but it is most likely that you're not going to be on the dirty, strong side of the storm, meaning you're not going to see the onshore flow. And without the onshore flow, you don't get that tremendous storm surge flooding. So I would say prepare for tropical storm force winds, maybe some power outages, but it seems unlikely that you're going to get a direct hit from the storm.
How about this one from, hey, hello there to our good friends on Instagram. Yeah, we're live on Instagram tonight. Journosoph, or Journosoph. I think that's journalism sophomore, maybe,
Yes,
but that's what I think it is to me. On my Instagram page saying hashtag HJB, what is the significance of the tides and the supermoon? You touched on this earlier, but it's really not looking all that great for us, Jeff.
Yeah, unfortunately, timing is everything, right? And as we head into Wednesday morning, Wednesday, we have a supermoon. So it's not just a full moon, it's a supermoon. That means tides are going to be elevated at least a foot over where they would normally be during the high tide cycle. So we're going to add another extra foot of surge. That means that even if we didn't have a storm, as long as we had a little bit of onshore flow on Wednesday, we would still have some minor coastal flooding in those places that typically flood. That's how high the tides will be. The kind of day where you walk down to the water and you're like, wait a second, the water's really high. It's almost coming over the wall, right? You've seen that. Those are supermoon days. We average a few of them, of those high tide flooding days per year, between 3 and 5 or so. This is going to be one of those days, and then you're going to add a hurricane on top of it.
Yeah, look at this track right now, you guys. My goodness. Cedar Key, Crystal River on that side of the...
Right.
But everyone remember, that red area, and again, understanding how you read the forecast cone, that red area is anywhere the eye of the system is projected to go right now.
Right.
So
doesn't say anything about the impacts.
That's right. That's right. And so could shift west, could shift east. This is why we're going to be tracking it on Tracking the Tropics Monday into Tuesday, of course, into Wednesday. And Tuesday night into Wednesday is when we expect a landfall event. Again, use either of the hashtags on your screen, hashtag HeyJeff or hashtag HeyJB, to have your question featured just like this. Hashtags for us both. Jeff, how long after the center of the hurricane makes landfall does it begin to diminish? This question in particular is interesting because we haven't talked about Georgia or the Carolinas.
Yeah.
They are in line, Jeff,
They
to
are.
get rain from this storm.
Right. So I'm going to bring up the cone, but I just want to say it is moving fast. So that's the good news. That is really going to minimize the impacts. I'll extend this cone out for you so you can actually see it up there. So let's go backwards. Here it is making its way by Tampa. That's approximately probably around 8, 9 o'clock at night, 10 o'clock at night on Tuesday evening. All right. But look how fast it is. I mean, by 2 a.m., it's already almost making landfall. It is flying. It is flying north. It's not moving north, right? It's not moving fast now. You see that east-northeast of 3. That's the current movement of the storm. But its projected movement is going to be very fast. So it's going to be in and out quickly before you know it. So you asked specifically, I think, about whether the storm will diminish. I think you mean the winds in the center, the core of the storm, not just the general weather in any one location. It will diminish fairly quickly, but because it's moving so fast, that actually means that it could carry its hurricane status way into Georgia. Notice that it's still a hurricane when it crosses over the Florida-Georgia
Throwing
line.
this up real quick because this is a city that we're talking about here, Jeff. I mean, April on Instagram wants to know, #KJB, is Jacksonville going to be impacted? So let's go back to the model here.
Sure, look at how close it comes to Jacksonville.
Wow.
And at that point, it's probably a 1. It's a long story, but the National Hurricane Center has break points. So if it doesn't fall within those 6 to 12-hour, 12-hour break points, it'll carry the 2 all the way until it becomes a tropical storm, when in reality, it's probably a 1. So what it's forecasting right now is that a Category 1 storm is going to come within, somewhere around 40 miles probably or less from Jacksonville, which means that you could see hurricane force gusts in Jacksonville.
Let's go to this next question. It comes in from Monica, #KJB. Will Largo get affected bad?
At this point, if I had to, now Largo, the vast majority of Largo is inland. There are communities in Largo that are on the Intracoastal Waterway right across from Indian Rocks Beach. So it depends upon where you are in Largo. But if you're on the Intracoastal in Largo, you could see storm surge flooding. If you are just inland from that, because Largo is a big place, it goes pretty far inland on Ulmerton Road. I'm guessing at this point with this particular track, you're going to see wind gusts over hurricane force probably, at least in some of those bands. It's not going to be over hurricane force for a long time, but as the outer bands come through, those stronger storms. By the way, we're on the sloppy side of the storm. We're also going to get some isolated tornadoes, no doubt, quick-moving tornadoes. So, yeah, I think some hurricane force gusts are possible, up to 80 miles an hour or so.
On your Facebook page, Jeff, tonight on the WFLA Jeff Berardelli Facebook page, hashtags for us both, is there any particular time or day when we in Tampa will know for sure if Tampa gets hit? So asking really in essence when I want to know the answer to this question. This is the question I want the answer to, Jeff. When are we going to have a consensus and
if Tampa's going to be hit directly?
Right.
Yeah. I would say that anytime before 24 hours before, probably not for certain. I think after 24 hours, we've gotten to the point where we don't expect too many surprises inside of 24 hours. So because we're expecting this to make landfall, if it came directly to Tampa, it would be an earlier landfall. It wouldn't happen like early Wednesday morning. It would happen like late Tuesday evening. So I would say late Monday evening is when we'll know if it's coming to Tampa.
All right, let's go from Jeff's page to my page on Facebook. YouTube, we're coming your way. Instagram, we're coming your way. I know we got a lot of questions in our comment sections, but we're trying to get to as many as we can. Our audience right now is a little bit bigger on Facebook. YouTube, we're coming your way in just a second. Amanda, on my Facebook page, #KJB, any information on how this will affect the Carolinas, North and South, and Virginia as it comes through? Actually, South Carolina is on your graphic, as is North Carolina.
You can see by that point, when it gets into Georgia, it's already a 60-mile-an-hour tropical storm. When it gets to Charleston, it's probably 50-mile-an-hour tropical storm. When it gets to Wilmington, North Carolina, it's probably a 40-mile-an-hour tropical storm. So it'll be a tropical storm in both North Carolina and South Carolina. There'll still be some isolated tornadoes and some heavy rain, but it's going to be moving really fast. So I don't think, and one thing I should mention, there will be onshore flow as well. So I would expect storm surge flooding along the coast there. Not nearly as much as the west coast of Florida. I would say a few feet of storm surge in the bayous, low-lying areas along the coast, a few inches to several inches of rain. But again, moving fast, so the flood threat in terms of rainfall flooding should be minimized.
I promised we would get to YouTube. And, of course, we can get to YouTube next. Carl Renser on the WFLA YouTube page tonight. #KJB. What do you think the airport and flights are going to be like on Thursday? Why don't we just answer this question for Carl and our audience for really the entirety of the week? When do you think Tampa International or other airports here in the Tampa Bay area and beyond, really elsewhere here in Florida, are going to get impacted?
Yeah, I think the worst of it is going to be Tuesday into Wednesday. I think Thursday actually, as long as the airport's not damaged.
Probably clear.
Yeah, it should be okay. So I think Thursday, just weather-wise, I can only predict weather-wise, it should be okay for flights to take off out of Florida. But remember, there's still going to be a storm tracking up the eastern seaboard. So that's going to impact flights coming in and out. And the airlines may decide to send their planes out of Tampa, right? Which means they got to get them back. And if they're stuck somewhere along the eastern seaboard, it may be more difficult. So I would say weather-wise, Tampa Airport will be fine on Thursday, but what I can't predict is the operations of these airlines and whether or not they're going to have the planes here, and if there's any sustained damage to the airport that could cause problems as well.
Yeah, and travel, of course, people are going to want to know, do we do we hop out of town or what do we do exactly? So the airport's obviously always on the tip of everyone's tongues when a storm is about to hit a particular region. When I'm looking this way, folks, it's because I have my eyes on this monitor, monitoring all your comments. It's a lot to bring in all your comments from different social media platforms. Shout out to Sarah in our newsroom, who's helping me go through a lot of comments right now. But we got our eyes glued to about, I think, 9 or 10 different pages across 3 or 4 different social media platforms. We're trying to get to as many as we can.
Mind if I mention this, JB?
Sure, yeah.
So water temperatures, and you've been hearing this, but this is true. Water temperatures across the globe are at record levels, and not just at record levels. I mean, way above anything we've ever seen before. That is true also in the Gulf of Mexico. So if we can go to that graphic to show the Gulf, water temperatures are 2 to 4 degrees above normal. They are far above record levels. Now what I did was, those were sea surface temperature anomalies, so the departure from normal. Now what I'm doing is I'm putting the actual sea surface temperatures on and watch the storm track across the water. Right now it's in waters that are about 84 to 86. Once it gets into the southern Gulf, now it starts to move into water temperatures that are 88 and at times up to 90 degrees. So this is some serious high octane to fuel it. Luckily, it's going to be moving fast, but we've never had water temperatures this hot, really. And by the way, this is another interesting fact, JB. The 88-degree water temperatures extend down 120 feet down the water column. So if you were a diver, you would not hit the thermocline until 130 feet.
I'm only laughing because I'm a diver and I can't. These water temperatures.
We've not ever seen anything like it before. But again, storms have been moving fast. That may help us a little.
You go to the beach, you're hanging out with your family, you're playing some music on the radio or on Spotify, and you go into the water to cool off. You're not really getting all that cool. No. It's not as refreshing these days on the Gulf Coast side of Florida. It is like walking into a warm bathtub. I mean, that's what or a hot tub, really. I mean, that's what our waters feel like right now. And it'll be very interesting to watch Idalia progress as it gets closer to 88 and 90 degree sea surface temperatures. Let's go to, let's stay with YouTube. YouTube, we're going to stay with you. Joshua Medlock on the WFLA YouTube page tonight. Hashtag, hey Jeff, what are the odds of it hitting a low-end Cat 3 storm? Now, the reason why, of course, this is particularly an interesting question. Now, Category 3, folks. Category 3, Category 4, Category 5 on the Saffir-Simpson scale is a major hurricane. When we were talking several days ago, Jeff, you and I, we were talking with our meteorologists, with Rebecca and Amanda, Eric. We were talking with Lee and Val. We were all talking about this, and we were noting how we didn't expect this really to get above a low-end Cat 1. Here we are Sunday night talking about a Cat 2 at landfall, and we're talking about sea surface temperatures, 88, 90 degrees. Is there a chance it reaches this high-octane fuel as it gets closer, and we're talking about a Cat 3 at landfall?
It's conceivable. It's possible. I'm looking at the 18Z runs right now, and every single one of them is slightly below Cat 3. A lot of them are into Cat 2. Most of them are in Cat 1. I think what we're seeing here is an issue with wind shear. Let me show you this. This is important. It's a good question because we certainly could get to Cat 3. There is no doubt about it. But there's a lot of wind shear. There's a big mess in the Gulf right now. If you look, you can see a lot of red and a lot of orange, right? You can see where the tropical storm is. There's some blue over it. So there's a little window over the storm. It's kind of creating its own little envelope where it's protected. But wherever you see the orange, that is moderate wind shear. And wherever you see the red, that's strong wind shear. So let me progress this into the future. Stronger the wind shear, the more likely that the system weakens or it can't get as well organized as it needs to. A storm can't take advantage to a great degree of the extremely warm water temperatures until its internal structure is revving like an engine, right? Until it's really a perfect structure, almost perfect structure. So as long as the wind shear can kind of inhibit it or distract it, if you will, then it's harder for it to really take full advantage of the hot water temperatures. So you'll notice here we are Monday at 1 p.m., and the shear is weakening to its north, and there's a little window of blue, that blue indicating very weak shear, but it's a very narrow area of weak shear the whole time. There's shear to the right, shear to the left. What did Jimmy Buffett say? Fins to the right, fins to the left. Well, right now there's shear to the right, shear. So it's really having to fight off at least moderate shear when it's in the Eastern Gulf. Here's an important point. in answer to this question. A trough of low pressure is going to dip to the south and suck the circulation north. So is that area high pressure to the east of Florida. When this happens, we can get rapid intensification up to landfall because that trough of low pressure, it's very meteorological, but I'll just say that it can add energy to these storms, okay? It really essentially allows for the storms to breathe better. And when they breathe better, they can suck in more energy, they can push out more energy, they become like an engine. So when we start to see this trough kind of pick up the storm, we can see rapid intensification up to landfall. So that's something that we're going to be concerned about as well. So the long answer to your question is, I know.
No, because
I've been, you know what it is? I'm selfish and I wanted to go through this meteorological explanation with everybody. I had the graphic. So thank you for giving me the opportunity.
No, of course it's Tracking the Tropics and it's with our meteorologists, but I'll be honest with you. I lost you there for a second.
Okay.
But rapid intensification is possible is what you're saying.
It is possible. I can check while you're looking for the next question. I could check what the probabilities are as opposed to what they were on. The rapid intensification probabilities were only about 30% before, but I have a feeling they're higher now. So I'm going to check while you get the next question. Okay?
Yeah, and folks, let's just do a little bit of lingo. So rapid intensification, the concept of a storm very quickly, unexpectedly, going from, let's say, a tropical storm to a Cat 2 or a Cat 1 to a Cat 3.
The definition is 35 miles an hour in 24 hours.
There you go. Yeah. So there you have the numbers there, the stats from Jeff. I love this question. We got a couple in the queue here that we're going to get to. Again, use hashtag HeyJeff, hashtag HeyJB. We're not going anywhere, folks. This is a special Sunday night edition of Tracking the Tropics. We want to answer as many questions as possible here across Facebook Live, YouTube Live, and Instagram Live. So if you use either of our hashtags, we can animate your comment on screen. This next one in the queue is very relevant. We were talking earlier about how a lot of folks have moved down to Florida from the Northeast, from the Midwest, from other sections of the United States in years past. But we also have people asking questions like Paula's, hashtag HeyJeff. I have a house in Clearwater, but I'm in Washington State right now. How does it look for the Clearwater and Dunedin area? We have so many folks
it's a good question.
that have their homes down here, Jeff, but live elsewhere in the country.
Right.
And so they're curious about their property and they're watching our forecast tonight and watching our live stream because they want to know what Idalia is going to do.
So a couple things. First of all, I think Clearwater and Dunedin will likely, on the track that the National Hurricane Center has now, will likely have some wind gusts past hurricane force, so 80-mile-an-hour wind gusts, maybe a little higher than that. I think that's conceivable. I think the biggest issue is going to be storm surge, and it depends upon where your house is in Clearwater. If you've ever been to Clearwater, then you've been over the bridge that takes you from Clearwater to Clearwater Beach. Clearwater itself is elevated way up. There's a hill. There is a ridge line that runs down to Bel Air Bluffs. So in that area, you're not going to get any storm surge. You're way up, right? But there are parts of Dunedin and Clearwater, and especially Clearwater Beach, that are right at sea level. So if you go to Dunedin and you're in downtown and you head towards the water there, that little dock in downtown Dunedin, that's obviously right at sea level. So that means the downtown of Dunedin could very well see water. Especially as you get closer to the Intracoastal Waterway. You can see that what's forecast right now for Dunedin is around 5-ish feet of storm surge, and a lot of that depends upon exactly where the storm goes. And then add to that the fact that on a high tide cycle, we're going to be about 1 foot above normal. So you could see as much as 6 feet of water, at the dock there in Dunedin, and same thing on Clearwater Beach. So again, I don't know exactly where you live, but that's the answer to that question.
7 to 11 feet of storm surge.
Yeah, northern counties,
wild.
Citrus County. Yeah. And here's the thing. You see the same storm, same strength, but you see it on the East Coast, it's maybe 5 to 7 feet at most.
Right.
At most. We get about double the amount of storm surge that they get on the East Coast. That's because we have a very shallow slope. If you've ever done scalloping off of, Crystal River, or it's very shallow water way out.
And if you haven't, it's a lot of fun.
It is.
Just don't go in the next couple of days, folks.
Why is that?
The
storm.
No, you don't
you
want
can
to
go tomorrow.
You're not going to go. Oh, well, I guess you could.
Yeah.
Scalloping tomorrow,
Not Tuesday.
we're cool, but just not
Yes.
Tuesday. But really, you should go scalloping if you've ever done it. It's a lot of fun. Bring the kids. This is a really astute question from Kathy. Hashtag KJB, is the track similar to Hurricane Michael? I covered Hurricane Michael on Tracking the Tropics with our team here, Jeff, years ago. We did a lot of coverage of Hurricane Michael. And if you look at the Hurricane Michael track, it's a little bit more west. I believe that Mexico Beach on the Panhandle near Panama City Beach was the landfall location.
That's right.
And it does pose some eerie similarities to Idalia and Michael do have a very similar looking path, but
I don't have.
But they're different storms.
Yeah, so it is somewhat similar in that it's close. But Hurricane Michael made a landfall in Panama City, Mexico Beach, which is significantly further west than where this cone is. Panama City's not actually in the cone. And I think the difference here also is that this storm's going to be a little closer to land, so it'll have a little bit more land interaction. But the one way in which this is, in fact, similar is that we might see rapid intensification up to landfall. I don't think this is becoming a Cat 5. In fact, what I find really interesting is that our computer models are generally not going berserk with this system. The hurricane models, which have a tendency to go berserk and show crazy numbers like a 920 millibar lowest central pressure. We're not seeing that even with the hurricane models. We're not seeing the hurricane models produce Cat 4s and Cat 5s. Every run that comes out, they're generally in the Cat 2 to borderline Cat 3 range. So there's something inhibiting this. And I think it is moderate shear in the Gulf. So there is shear to help keep this system from becoming the monster that Michael is.
It's not as if all the ingredients are pointing to this being a Category 4 or 5 monster.
But it was with Ian. It was several. I knew 8 days before Ian even got here, before Ian was even a twinkle in Mother Nature's eye. It wasn't even there. There was nothing even on the satellite. We knew that there would be a major hurricane in the Eastern Gulf. We knew there was nothing to inhibit it. And to be honest with you, the fact that, and we tried to convey that to people in a way where we still let them know that there was uncertainty, but different situations. A lot of certainty with the Ian situation, less certainty this time because there's more factors out there that could complicate and muddy the waters, if you will.
Yeah, and folks, Idalia is not becoming a Cat 6 storm, okay?
People are asking about that?
Yeah, well, no. But I think it is a good public service announcement opportunity to address some of the TikTok activity that has existed in the last week or so. Folks, I'll just say this as plain as I can and look into the camera and tell you there is no such thing as a Cat 6 storm.
That's true. Yeah.
Saffir-Simpson scale stops at Cat 5.
That's right. But, I think what might have muddied the waters there, JB, is that there was some discussion last year about, there's been some discussion in academic circles about it, because we have seen lately these storms seem to be getting stronger, and whether that's a long-term trend because of climate change or whether it's just a perturbation, short-term perturbation is a little bit too early to tell. We do think, and our research shows that climate change is going to make these storms stronger in the future, but whether or not what's happened in the Gulf over the past 10 years or not is directly related to climate change in terms of these rapid intensification happening more often, these really strong storms. That is it. We don't know for sure about that. We do think that will be the case going forward, though.
Let's go to this next question. Yeah, we're streaming Instagram tonight and having some fun with our folks on Instagram. Echo Forever on the WFLA JB Instagram page, #HeyJB. So Tampa definitely on the bad side,
It looks like it. There's no definites in weather, right? There's no definites. But let me show you the progression of the storm and the wave heights, because that really shows you how the counterclockwise flow, we are on the eastern side. The eastern side is where the winds are blowing towards the coast, and that's why we're expecting so much storm surge. You can see those waves offshore near the core on our American model, 30 to 40 feet or so. I'll push this forward. I want you to notice it's important. Here we are midnight between Tuesday night and Wednesday morning. And you notice that the winds still aren't blowing on shore from Pinellas County north. Now, south of Pinellas County, they are blowing on shore. Now, we're starting to see storm surge pile up around St. Pete Beach all the way down to Longboat Key and down towards Venice, right? But at 8 o'clock, I'm going to go back a little bit. Let's go back to 8 p.m. Here's 8 p.m. Even at 8 p.m., most of the area is seeing offshore flow.
Yeah.
Okay, I say that because we don't really get into the time when we're worried about storm surge until after midnight generally. So very late Tuesday night. So starting maybe 11 p.m. Tuesday night, and then especially in the morning high tide cycle on Wednesday morning is when we're most concerned, because you can see everybody now. The water's being funneled into Tampa Bay. Think about it. This is the Cat 2 making landfall more than 100 miles north of Tampa, if that's the case, and we're still seeing 3 to 5 feet of storm surge inside Tampa Bay. Goes to show you how vulnerable we are to storm surge.
Yeah, this graphic, I think, tells a story. Again, a reminder, folks, I have to repeat this every few minutes. Our interactive coverage will, of course, continue tonight. We're not going anywhere. We're going to continue to answer your questions. We're also going to be here Monday. We're going to be here Tuesday, whatever platform you're watching on right now. And let me also point out, too, that's really, really important. Of course, Jeff is a broadcast meteorologist. He's a chief meteorologist for a television station here at WFLA News Channel 8, your NBC station in Tampa, Florida. But if the power goes out, all right, if you lose power and you're looking for Jeff's coverage, you're looking for our coverage from the WFLA Max Defender 8 weather team, guess what? A lot of times, cellular infrastructure now is the last thing to go. They do a really good job now. They've built up cellular infrastructure in a way that your cell phone will still work. Charge up your mobile batteries. It's part of your hurricane kit. And you'll be able to watch us on Facebook or YouTube or WFLA.com, your platform of choice. So we'll be here Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday through Idalia as it goes from tropical storm to hurricane. You were going to note something, Jeff, before the next question.
Well, Eric Stone just walked in. He's, of course, one of our Max Defender 8 meteorologists.
Yeah.
And I just want you to know that when we start streaming 24/7, and JB, we will be streaming 24/7, Eric is not allowed to take bathroom breaks. So we're going to need to get him a porta potty here. He doesn't need one. I hope he must be wearing diapers, because if he doesn't need them.
We added a button here for the right here, Eric.
Right.
You're all taken care of.
You won't hear the flush on air, will you, JB?
If they do, it'll just be a brief moment of much needed comedy during storm coverage. That's for sure.
But the point of that is that we're going to be here all the time now, constantly updating the stream, as JB mentioned, and we have our whole team that's going to be working, 12 on, 12 off, straight through the storm.
Ryan on the WCBD Facebook page. Back to our Q&A. Use hashtag HeyJB or hashtag HeyJeff to have your comment featured on screen. Odds this makes its way into the Atlantic for a re-strengthening off of the South Carolina coast. I like to call this the zombie effect, right? A storm goes across land, reemerges over the water, and then comes back to life.
I think there's some chance, but I think there'd still be interaction, land interaction.
Right.
And I also think it's been moving really, really fast. So if it were to pick up any steam by moving over the water, it would be very minimal, I think. It's just flying. It's going to move fast.
YouTube, I'm going to really focus on you guys now for the next few minutes. We've been doing a lot of Facebook, sprinkling in some Instagram, but I really want to get our YouTube commenters. If you're joining us tonight on the WFLA YouTube page, get in your hashtag HeyJB and hashtag HeyJeff questions and comments now. We're going to be getting to them. And we're going to be starting with this. Great Forrest Gump reference. You had a Jimmy Buffett reference earlier, and then Lieutenant Dan 24/7 is joining us on YouTube. Shout out to Lieutenant Dan. Hashtag HF and JB. What about the villages?
Yeah, it's a good question. Well, the villages are inland, right? So, of course, it helps that you're a little further inland. But let me back up and kind of bring you into view. Now, the villages are, in fact, in the eastern part of the cone. So there is a chance that you will be hit directly. It's more likely that you're going to see outer bands. And I don't know if you'll quite get hurricane force wind gusts. You would really need the center of the storm, because at this point, it's only predicted to be a Cat 2. Of course, we should prepare for a Cat 3. Whenever we think there's going to be a Cat 2, we always tell you prepare for a storm that's one category higher than that. But again, to get hurricane force wind gusts over, let's say, 100 miles an hour would be difficult in the villages. I do think we could see some hurricane force wind gusts to maybe 75. You should just plan to be without power, and that's probably it. And of course, there'll be some superficial damage and some trees down here and there, but you're far enough inland, so unless the storm passes right over you, I think you'll probably avoid most of the hurricane force winds.
I don't know if you know this, Jeff, but on YouTube Live, we have a great team of moderators. They help us keep our comment section kind and welcoming to all. I want to shout out our great moderator team of Chelsea. We got Team Brittany. We got Michelle in there tonight. D might be floating around in there
That's
too.
great.
Lynn, I see Lynn. We have some great moderators. Thank you to them for joining us tonight and helping in our comment section. Let's stay with YouTube. And we're going to go to Cosmic Game Design on YouTube. Hashtag KJB. What are the impacts looking like for Central Florida? I haven't heard much information for this area. I'm over in Winter Park. Protect the theme parks, right? Disney World, Universal.
It always, isn't it amazing how, when you think about the storms that we've seen over the past 20 years, Francis, Jean, Ian, Charlie, they've all had a much bigger impact in Central Florida than they have in Tampa Bay. It's really just insane to think about that. Tampa Bay is either protected by the Native American burial grounds, or we're just, this is just statistically normal for our area. So I want to show you this. This is the probability of tropical storm force winds. And even though I didn't add any cities for Central Florida because we're mainly a Tampa Bay station, you can clearly see Central Florida. The chance that you'll see sustained tropical storm force winds in Kissimmee is moderate. You go east of there into downtown Orlando, and then you start moving into the possible category. It's not quite as high, but you are going to see tropical storm force wind gusts as the outer bands move through, and you could see isolated tornadoes. So that's the main impact as it stands right now on Central Florida.
How about this next question? Also sticking with YouTube Live. Hashtags for us both. Look, Newport Richey is in a somewhat vulnerable spot right now, Jeff. Is that a fair way to put it as far as Newport Richey at the moment?
I would say, yeah. I think the biggest threat in Newport Richey is going to be storm surge.
Yeah.
There's a lot of real estate that is at very close to sea level in Newport Richey, if you're west of US 19 especially. And remember, that area is being forecasted to have 5 to 8 feet of storm surge. It's a lot. Folks, for those of you who were around during the superstorm back in 1993, the Nature Coast ended up with about that much storm surge, about the 5 to 8 foot range. And that was not a hurricane. That was a strong cold front connected to a big nor'easter. Turned out to be a nor'easter. It was during the middle of the winter. I'm sure there are some people that are watching right now that remember that. It was somewhat unexpected. The squall line of severe thunderstorms in the Gulf pushed in and forced 5 to 8 feet of surge into the Nature Coast, and even Pinellas County had a significant surge. And that wasn't even a hurricane. That goes to show you how vulnerable the coast is here, that a cold front could do that. So in the case of Newport Richey, 5 to 8 feet of surge, if you were around in 1993, you'll know exactly what to expect, because that's pretty much what happened. People's boats were like a mile away from their docks. I mean, it was pretty astonishing for the middle of winter in a cold front. But that's a lot. That's a lot of storm surge. So, I mean, look, I didn't mean to, and I didn't mention anything else. I mean, Newport Richey, you'll get a few to several inches of rain. You will get some isolated tornadoes. You'll get some wind gusts over hurricane force. I would say you could see gusts with this kind of track up to maybe 90 miles an hour or so. It's conceivable, which means you should plan to be without power.
Robert Leonardo on YouTube Live wants to know about Highlands County.
Yep.
And for our viewers joining us, not familiar with where Highlands County is.
Sure, Sebring.
Yep.
On that map.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, same thing here. I put the probability of tropical storm force winds where it's red and it's purple. You don't see purple there, but you will eventually.
Let's go full screen here because you can barely see Sebring there. Yep. There it is, all the way in the bottom right.
Yeah. So the chance of tropical storm force winds in the red, the deep red, that's 100%. And then in the purple, which is not there, but it will be soon once we get closer to the storm. But you can see the Sebring and areas like Orlando, you're in the kind of less likely. When we say tropical storm force winds, though, we're talking about sustained. So for a significant period of time, not just these gusts. You will get gusts over tropical storm force in places like Orlando, maybe as far south as Sebring. But I don't really think at this point that Highlands County is going to see a major hit from this. It doesn't look like it.
How about this question from, you know what, how about let's go to one of our great YouTube moderators. Chelsea talks a lot in the WFLA YouTube comment section tonight, saying hashtag KJB, how could this affect people south of the cone? Last hurricane gave us tornadoes all the way down here, and I'm not sure exactly where here is for Chelsea. Maybe she can clarify for us. Her comments come to me direct because she's a moderator, but how do we answer Chelsea's question here tonight?
Yeah, I mean, the dirty side of the storm is the south side of the storm. And if you take a look at this hour-by-hour radar, here we are Tuesday, 8 a.m., and look at those bands sweeping in, well over 100 miles to the east of the core. Places like Sanibel Island, inland areas like Hardy, DeSoto, Highlands County. We talked about Sebring not seeing direct impacts, but you're going to still see these bands, and there's going to be tornadoes, I can tell you that. So I would watch out for these quick-moving tornadoes. Tornado warnings will be posted if that happens. So, if you're south, and I got to tell you, even though the storm's coming on shore in Cedar Key, they're still forecasting 2 to 4 feet of storm surge down to Sanibel Island area. So it's not a lot, but it's a lot more than is necessary. You can see in this particular case.
I just want to point out really quickly, I don't like this model. The WFLA model.
Well, this is
it's looking
this is something called the graph model. It's a model that we have through our
no. When I say I don't like it, I mean I don't like it for Tampa Bay. I mean that looks pretty. That does not look good for us.
Right now, this is one of the further east solutions. I want to be candid and clear with you. Not all the models show this, but it's worth showing because this is a good model, and it may be right, and we need to be prepared for that. Even though this is slightly east of the National Hurricane Center has the storm moving right over Cedar Key. This has the storm moving in between Cedar Key and Crystal River. So it's really not that far east of the National Hurricane Center track.
Yeah.
And that's what it would look like. So you would get core hurricane winds, in Citrus County. You'd be on the edge of the eye wall, even probably as far south as Hernando County. And then we would be in frequent hurricane force gusts in those squalls in the, the first band, not the outer bands, but the first outer band, in all on the Nature Coast in Pinellas County, probably.
Chelsea clarified she's joining us from Parkland, west of Boca.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, look, you'll probably see a very outer band there, but I don't think you'll see too much. I wouldn't be surprised if you got a quick passing tornado or two, a couple gusty squalls. That'll happen on the outskirts of these landfalling tropical systems, but I don't think you get anything more than that.
Man, if it nudges east, if Idalia nudges east in that forecast cone, and if this WFLA model is somewhat close to accurate, man, I'm looking at Crystal River here and just thinking, just because maybe I know the area, I've been there, and I'm just thinking, so many people know Crystal River, they go there for so many different fun trips with the family. That's a spot that looks like it could get walloped if this holds. But that's why we have a couple more days here, folks, before we're really getting closer to a landfall event. We've had a lot of questions. We're going to go till 9:30 tonight, so we got about another 20 to 25 minutes here on Tracking the Tropics. But Eddie M on YouTube Live, hashtags for us both. How will Tallahassee be affected? We've had a lot of questions tonight about Florida's capital.
Right. So I'm going to fast forward this track here so you can see where it goes. So Tallahassee would be on the western side of the storm, most likely, although Tallahassee is in fact in the cone. It's on the very western edge of the cone. So just like with Ian last year, Ian tracked on the very eastern edge of the cone. It's not out of the question that this storm will track in the cone, but on the very eastern side, or in the cone on the very western side. That would put it as far east as a direct hit to Tampa and as far west as a direct hit to Tallahassee, if that were to happen. But this particular track, Tallahassee would be on the weaker side of the storm. The less dirty side of the storm is less likely you'd see tornadoes. You get less rain. You obviously would not see storm surge because you're so far inland. So, but you could see tropical storm force winds, and that would be all you would see, and some heavy rain for a short period of time.
Again, Jeff Barardelli, JB Biunno here with you live, folks, for another about 20 to 25 minutes, taking as many questions as possible across our social media platforms. We're going to go one more to YouTube Live, and then Facebook. It's the seesaw. We're going to bounce back to Facebook Live and take as many as we can there as well. And this one comes in from Box RDZ. And this one, hits close to home for us because we saw the devastation. You were down there, Jeff. You saw how bad Fort Myers was hit by Hurricane Ian. So Box RDZ wants to know, I live in Fort Myers. Is there any chance we could get hit bad?
Well, I have to show you, and if you're just tuning in, you might not have seen this. I showed it earlier, but it's worth showing again. That was the National Hurricane Center track 72 hours out. We're now about 48 to 60 hours out from landfall, about 60 hours, let's say, maybe a little less than that. But 72 hours out, that was the official forecast cone from the National Hurricane Center. And you notice that Fort Myers was barely in the cone. Now, as I zoom in, you will see that the center of the track missed by about 220 miles. So the forecast track from the National Hurricane Center was 220 miles west of where the actual center of the storm made landfall, right near Fort Myers. That was the actual track of Ian. So the error was over 200 miles in this case.
Let's go full screen on this, because this is crazy, because you're basically demonstrating here with this graphic that Ian's track hugged the rightmost wall of the forecast cone.
It did. Now, the National Hurricane Center was smart. They probably realized that there was a fair degree of uncertainty, and they made the cone a little bit bigger to account for that. And they were right. It ended up making landfall in the cone, but on the eastern edge. And the problem is so many people focus only on the center of the cone. And that gets people in trouble. In fact, and not understanding that the cone is only talking about where the center of the storm will go. It's not telling you what the impacts will be. As I zoom in to this graphic one more time, watch this. Naples was outside the cone. Now, people just assumed in Naples they'd be fine because they were outside the cone, no problem. But the storm ended up tracking on the east side of the cone. And the cone doesn't say anything about what the impacts are going to be. Naples ended up with 6 feet of storm surge and gusts to 90 miles an hour, which is a tremendous impact. So it goes to show you that the cone only tells you where the center of the storm is going to go, somewhere in the cone, not right down the center line. And then it doesn't say anything about what the impacts are going to be. So we just need to remember that. So in answer to the question, yes, of course it's possible that Fort Myers may see direct or indirect impacts from it. It seems less likely, but it's possible.
Now, big difference. You will note, and we talked about this with Ian, all of the ingredients were conducive for it to develop into the Category 4 storm that it was. And here we're, but again, history is an interesting.
It's been kind to us.
Yes, this graphic tells us that.
And has not been kind to Fort Myers.
All these lines, folks, are other storms that have hit. And Tampa, look at that. We are.
There's a bubble. There's like a shield protecting us. You know, it's really strange. Now, I did make a graphic, and I don't have it here, that goes back to 1922 because I want to do exactly 100 years. This graphic goes through last year, so 2022. And you can see I drew Ian specifically in a black line for you. But look at
Charlie, Irma,
it's like the hurricanes just veer away from Tampa Bay proper. Now, our market for TV side, we reach everyone online, but on TV, it goes from Crystal River to Englewood. And Crystal River's in Citrus County, northern Citrus County, and Englewood is in southern Sarasota County near Northport also. That's it. That's our viewing area on TV. And somehow we've managed to miss any direct landfalls. Now, of course, we have had a couple of hurricanes that have passed through, namely Ian, Charlie, and Irma. And if you remember back in 2000, they're not on this map, and I'll tell you why in a second, Jean and Francis, they came across, and they may have briefly been hurricanes as they came across, but the specific criteria that I put into the computer when I made this map was it had to be a hurricane within 200 miles of downtown Tampa. And so it's conceivable there may not be a storm or two on here just because it missed the 200-mile threshold. That's it. But the point is there have been no landfalls in Tampa Bay, in the Tampa Bay area in 73 years. If you go back another 30 years, you'd see 2 more landfalls. And if you go back 101 or 102 years, you'd see the biggest storm that's hit Tampa Bay in the last 101 or 102 years, which was the storm that hit Tarpon Springs in 1921. It's a Cat 3. Minimal Cat 3, by the way.
If you live in the Tampa Bay area, you're looking at this and going, ugh, because the odds are at some point.
Maybe.
Or people really do believe the Native American
Native
myth,
burial ground.
The burial grounds that are in Tampa Bay that keep away hurricanes. Look, whether it's Native Americans, whether it's just coincidence, right now, it's pretty evident that we have been extremely lucky in years and in decades past. Back to the questions while we have another 20 minutes here on Tracking the Tropics. Yep, Nelson, I'm going to bring you up here really quickly and just let you know we have all of it for you on WFLA.com. You should also be able to find it on trackingthetropics.tv. We are going to update our school closures list. But really quickly, Jeff, I mean, everyone's going to be fine tomorrow. I mean, some schools will like to close early as a precaution just to, allow for people and families to be as safe as possible to take the necessary precautions that they need for
Tomorrow's
their homes.
the day to do it, though.
Yeah, tomorrow is you were just at Publix. I was at Publix this morning. It was a ghost town. You were there tonight.
Yep.
And
and there were young people. And when I say that, I mean,
why is that?
Because I think young people take it just a little less seriously.
Oh, okay.
And to see some of the young people there, they must have gotten the hurricane watches on their phone because we're all under a hurricane watch, saw it on their phone and said, let me just get to the store. And they did. Yeah, a lot of young people there.
Yeah, and I always say this, but look, PSA, don't buy all the paper towels or water bottles or toilet paper. Don't be the person with the shopping cart of 6 things of 12 packs of toilet paper. Okay, I understand you want to be ready and you're doing everything you can for your family, but can we all just, be like
cooperate?
A community? Yeah, like be a community and just everyone gets one. You just share with your fellow neighbor. Be a good person. Just don't be that person. I can't stand seeing it, and so let's just hope that everybody, takes things seriously enough, but doesn't go overboard to the point where they are hoarding things. Chantel wants to know, #HeyJB, is Land O'Lakes going to get slammed? That's right here in Pasco County. I have friends in Land O'Lakes.
Right. It appears that Land O'Lakes will see some, strong tropical storm force wind gusts. It would be hard to get hurricane force wind gusts into Land O'Lakes unless the track was much further south. But I do think that there's a potential for isolated tornadoes. I think there's going to be a number of tornadoes on the eastern side of this system. And I think that's the biggest inland threat. So if you're east of I-75, I think your biggest threat is going to be these isolated tornadoes that move by. If you're west of I-75, then the threat really ramps up quickly as you head towards the coast.
Let's go to this one. This is interesting. Amanda wants to know on my Facebook page, actually, now that I'm looking at this graphic, what do y'all's newsroom do to prepare for these types of storms? Do we sleep there? We take precautions just like everybody else. We preach it on stream and on broadcast for everyone to take the necessary precautions to keep your family safe. We do the same thing with our families, Jeff. I have packed my hurricane kit. In fact, I have all my supplies that I need. I had a really good conversation with my wife this morning just about being ready. We don't know if this storm is going to take that nasty east turn towards Tampa Bay, but we also too, as journalists and as meteorologists, we also take precautions in our own lives and in our newsroom here at WFLA as well.
I'm looking at some of the latest information here, and
anything new come in?
Well, here's the problem that we've had today, and let me go to the satellite photo and show you. The problem that we've had, and I think as we zoom in, it's interesting to see. Watch this storm over the past 12 hours. See how it's kind of migrating east and east. The problem is it's very hard to predict. It's not really moving east. It's that there's new convection firing up east of where the center was, and the center keeps relocating towards where the biggest convection is. Predicting convection is very hard for computer models to do. And so until the storm really has a very well-formed circulation to the point where convection on either side really can't redevelop the center, then we have a problem forecasting where the storm's going to start and where it's eventually going to move. And the latest is that the storm keeps moving east. And it hasn't really even formed to the point where it's and started making its move north yet. The further east it starts, the further east it's going to end up. And that's why we keep seeing these corrections in our computer models. And it may be why our in-house WFLA model is showing a track further east than it was before. Significant shift it made this afternoon. So you notice the icon. Watch it go from the west to the east, kind of scooting or wobbling further east. It's because it's redeveloping where the biggest convection is. And we hope that trend doesn't continue, because if it keeps going another 50 miles further east, now all of a sudden the storm's taking the eastern edge of the cone.
And we should probably mention that Western Cuba is already feeling impacts, and the worst of it's probably still ahead for Western Cuba, right?
Yeah. So Western Cuba is luckily for them, they're going to get the heavy rain, but luckily for them, the storm's not going to have really become a hurricane yet. We don't think, or at least that's not the official forecast. And we don't think Western Cuba is going to make any difference. The storm could move right over Western Cuba. It's not going to affect the structure of the storm because it's very narrow and it's not very mountainous there. That's an important thing to note. And if you see me looking down, it's because I'm looking at my phone. I'm just, I'm on the stream, but I also need to be watching what the newest information that's coming in is.
I look at this graphic, Jeff, and you know what this kind of reminds me of? After I'm putting it all together in my head, and we like to make analogies here in our business, but this kind of reminds me like a race car revving its engine. Because after this point, it's going to speed through the Gulf, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's barely moving at all. It's just kind of shifting around, and then all of a sudden, zoom, it's going to take off, and it's going to just head straight north by northeast.
You see what the problem is? See all that wind shear in the Gulf? It's that, and that high to its west is keeping it at bay right now. It's not moving. It's when the high starts to weaken, watch, you'll see the high moves away, and the shear weakens, it gives it a window to move north.
Right.
And there it goes. Now, and then once it gets to about here, Tuesday morning, notice that trough that digs down, that jet stream, that's going to accelerate it, start moving it really quickly. So it'll start moving very fast once it's about a couple hundred miles west of Fort Myers.
There's a lot going on in this graphic.
There is.
You did a good job with this graphic because there's a lot of moving parts with this.
There is. Yep.
We got another 10 minutes. This is the final 10 minutes for a live Q&A. So we're going to try to go as rapid fire as we can, try to get to as many questions and comments as we can over the next 10 minutes. So get in your hashtag HeyJeff or hashtag HeyJB questions now. Joanna on my Facebook page, hashtag HeyJB, should people living in RVs evacuate, in particular in Inverness? And if so, when should they move into a house for shelter? Yeah, folks with RVs.
Yes, it's always a tough question. They generally say that you should run away from water and hide from the wind. So, they generally don't issue evacuation orders for RVs. These are decisions you need to make on your own. Inverness is decently far inland, but the storm has a decent chance of moving right over you. So I think tomorrow you should make that decision. If, in fact, the track shifts a little further east, then, and you don't feel like you're in a solid structure RV, I would say at that point, see if you can find a relative to go to there. That would be my advice. Yeah.
Can we throw up the track? Actually, you know what? No, hold the track for a second, Jeff, because Cliff is asking a very interesting question. Are we getting sandwiched between this storm and the other one on the East Coast? We have not mentioned on this stream that Franklin is out there.
Yeah, it's a strong storm.
And Franklin, we were noting before the stream began, Jeff, off stream, we were noting that Franklin, you guys, looks really
strong,
impressive on satellite. We are very grateful that Franklin is not going to impact the continental U.S.
Yeah, it's strong.
It's a strong storm out there in the Atlantic. And it just looks like a beast, you guys. It's not going to impact us. But is there any impact to Cliff's question about us, the Florida Peninsula, being kind of the cream and the Oreo between these two storms?
Wouldn't you rather be than be the Oreo?
Right. I mean,
right.
Yeah. We are. Florida right now is sandwiched between these two systems.
Yeah, it is. It's true. But at some point, Florida will be in the direct purview of Idalia, is the correct pronunciation of that, by the way.
Idalia.
Those are the latest spaghetti plots. You can see they're a little different than they were. They haven't really moved, though. I mean, it's still pointed directly at Cedar Key, Big Bend. I have to say, though, if we keep seeing the trend of the storm redeveloping further east, which it has been, that's not good news necessarily. I would expect to see a shift of these models a little further east. But for right now, steady as she goes. And I have to tell you, the European model for the past 3 days has shown landfall Cedar Key, Cedar Key, Cedar Key, Cedar Key, Cedar Key, Cedar Key. European model is a good model. It may be right. It may be right.
Folks, super fans of Tracking the Tropics know that we talk about the Euro a lot because the Euro does a really good job at predicting storms in this section of the world. But folks, also take a mental snapshot right now of these spaghetti models and kind of where they are, because tomorrow on Tracking the Tropics, we will have a different set of spaghettis, and we'll note if they shift at all west or east. We're getting a ton of questions on Facebook Live about Polk County, Crystal, and others. We did not want you to think that we forgot about you. Hashtag HeyJB from Crystal asking about Polk County, of course, that being Lakeland, Florida, the area between Tampa and Orlando.
Right. So let's bring up the gust forecast here. This will kind of help us determine how strong. So here we are Tuesday afternoon at around 3 p.m. Let me go backwards a little bit, not this minute. So that's when we start seeing those winds that are ramping up. But we're not yet in tropical storm force winds in Polk County, okay? Here we are, 8 p.m. From I-75 west, you're in tropical storm force sustained. These are sustained wind, or tropical storm force winds, gusts, I should say. Okay, let's go a little further east and push this forward a little. Here we are in the middle of the night. So later Tuesday evening into early Wednesday morning. Now notice what's happening in places like Lakeland, Bartow, Winter Haven. You're definitely seeing sustained tropical storm force winds and gusts, probably I would say at this point, probably gusts to 45 miles an hour, maybe slightly higher than that. Let's fast forward to Wednesday morning, and you're still getting those gusts over tropical storm force. You generally don't get into the large area of gusts over 50 miles an hour, but you will see some gusts to probably, 50, 60 miles an hour, I would say.
How about this one from Debbie's got a good memory. Debbie remembers Ian.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yes.
And last year, Debbie wants to know, will this storm suck the water out of Tampa Bay like Ian did?
It's a good question.
Guys, I don't know if everybody remember. You Google this image, folks, because it's wild. We had them on WFLA.com. Tampa Bay was barren. People were walking on the bottom of Tampa Bay like it was like a street. I mean, all the water got pushed out of Tampa Bay by Ian because of all of that force that was driving water out really to the southwest. Yeah. So is that
well, let me show you.
Possible, Jeff? Or? So
here we are at 8 a.m. Notice how the wind around Idalia is blowing the water offshore. So we don't have onshore wind anywhere. Here we are at noon.
Yep.
Here we are at 4 p.m. Still, the water's being blown up and out. Okay, so there's some water's being blown out. The storm is further offshore, though, so I don't expect there to be bare bottom. The water dropped like 6 feet in Tampa Bay. I mean, crazy amount. It dropped a lot. Yeah.
Yep. They were walking on the bottom.
I saw a video. A friend of mine, a captain up in Ankle, sent me a video of the beach. He was standing at his house essentially on the beach, and there was no water at all at his dock, and you could not see water on the horizon at all. This was the Gulf. This wasn't even the bay. In the Gulf, the water off, Pasco County and northern Pinellas. So we don't really get into onshore. Here we are Tuesday evening. Now we're starting to see
the arrows, folks. Yeah. See the arrows that are circulating around, and watch it in relation to the Tampa Bay area here as this graphic progresses.
So Longboat Key, you now have onshore flow. Venice, you now have onshore flow. That's Tuesday evening. Okay? Again, a lot of this depends on the actual track of the storm. Here we are at 11 p.m. on Tuesday. Now that onshore flow is starting to move into Pinellas County. Not until late in the evening Tuesday. So we have to watch for the high tides starting Tuesday early evening through Wednesday morning.
And this is looking like the water is being pushed into Tampa Bay, not out of it.
Right. That's right. Because early Tuesday, it's being pushed out, right? So you may see at the low tide during the day on Tuesday that there's no water in certain areas of the bay. Okay, you may see that. But remember, it's not moving as slow as Ian. It's moving fast. So we're not likely to see as much water being pushed out because it's not going to be for as long a period of time that we're going to have these offshore winds. Here we are Tuesday night and Wednesday morning. Now the arrows are pointed straight at the beach. So the worst tide is likely to be at high tide Tuesday night into Wednesday morning, whenever that is. Okay, that's something I have to. We have a graphic for that actually, but I don't have it here at the moment. But tonight at 11 on our newscast, we will be talking about that, when those tides will be.
We're going to be here a long time on Tuesday. A lot of live streaming on Tuesday, folks. Everyone welcome to join us. We'll be having a very frank conversation about this. We'll be basically going into storm coverage mode and landfall coverage mode at that point. But there's a lot going on Tuesday. Tuesday is really the big. Monday is a day where I think we see movement into the Gulf, and then Tuesday it looks like we get a consensus as to where exactly landfall could be. Let's go to this next question from Grace. Grace is joining us on Facebook Live, #HeyJeff. If it does hit Tampa dead on, how long will the worst of it stay over us? That we were talking about the speed of this.
Yeah, it's moving fast. So let's look at the winds. That'll be the best way we can do this. Let me pull the winds up for you. So let's start it when the tropical storm force winds are moving in. So here they are, moving into Pinellas. So let's just assume they get here at like 5 p.m. on Tuesday. So let's look at how long we're in tropical storm force winds. We start seeing the tropical storm force winds 5 p.m. Tuesday. Okay, we're still in tropical storm force winds until about late morning Wednesday. So we'll see tropical storm force winds for about probably 16 hours. Okay, these are gusts, not sustained tropical storm force winds, but tropical storm force wind gusts for as much as 16 hours. But let's see how long we'll be in these 50-mile-an-hour winds, because this is really what we care about, right? The winds that are 50 to 75-plus miles an hour. They start to move in at around 8 p.m. on Tuesday, and that red is on top of us through, well, notice it's already kind of moving out here at 5 a.m., but let's assume it's still there. So we're probably in tropical storm force wind gusts to 60, 70 miles an hour for, I'd say, about 8 hours. And then if we get hurricane force wind gusts, we're probably in that for maybe 4 hours. Okay, hopefully that answered your question.
Let's go to this next one. We'll try to get as many as we can in these last few minutes on stream. Debo Baggins, #HeyJB, #HeyJeff. Don't know if this is a Lord of the Rings reference, by the way, but salute you, sir. What is the likelihood of this strengthening and pushing through the front straight north? So instead, Jeff, of in essence making that hook or actually, no, I'm doing that wrong. Hold on. I got everything backwards. Hook like this, right, towards Cedar Key, that it just plows straight north into the Panhandle.
That's a good question. So I'm trying to find, okay. So the wind shear map will help us show what's happening here. It doesn't seem likely because it's going to have to go through that jet stream, right? And you notice, but it can happen. And you mean straight north, you mean like Panama City. I'm assuming that's the question here.
Yep.
Yeah. It seems less likely if you look at the steering flow, because what we have up, those arrows are at 200 millibars, so they're 250 millibars, so they're way up in this is essentially where the jet stream is. That's what I'm showing you here. And it would be difficult for the storm to get into Panama City, but not impossible. But again, this is based upon what the computer models, how they model the atmosphere right now. That could change 24 hours from now. The computers may be off, and they are often off a little bit. So I would say that it's less likely, but it's not out of the realm of possibilities.
Just a handful more. Jamie wants to know, #HeyJB, how does this one match up to Irma in 2017? I mean, we're talking about two different types of storms,
yes.
No doubt.
Yeah, I was on the air in South Florida during Irma, so I was right in the core of that. In terms of, at least it was part of my viewing area. And if you remember, that made landfall in Big Pine Key, and as a Cat 4. It was a stronger storm when it first made landfall, but then it weakened dramatically as it moved north. This is very different from Irma because it's so far west. It's in the Gulf. I mean, I would not compare those two storms at all. Michael's probably a slightly better comparison because it was in the Gulf, but even that I don't think is a great comparison because this is much further to the east.
You remember where I was in Irma? You remember where I think I told you?
No, where were you?
I was in it. Yeah, I
was
Hurricane Hunters.
It's interesting.
I was on the flight when it had just been named a Cat 5 and flew in with the Hurricane Hunters.
Oh, wow.
Long flight,
bumpy
flight.
Bumpy?
Just total.
I couldn't do it. I don't like it. I'm not huge into. I don't love flying. I mean, I don't mind flying, but I I would not want to do that.
It was my fiance at the time. We had to have a real conversation about it because you're flying into a monster storm. Right. But Irma was. I'll tell you. I remember the moment. I'm getting goosebumps. I remember the moment where you emerge into the eye wall and the Coliseum effect and what that looked like. But Irma was a beast.
Yeah, it was
an absolute monster of a storm. We're not expecting an Irma here, folks, because as Jeff, our chief meteorologist, has been noting here on stream, just all of the elements, they're just not all there for this to become that monster storm of the season.
We don't think so.
It still should be taken seriously, no doubt, but it is not going to be that absolute historic peninsula-wrecking monster.
I just caution that you can never say absolutely anything.
Right. We don't expect it to be, I think, is
I mean, I think the only thing that would give me pause there is that because water temperatures are just stuff we've never really seen before, that's how hot they are. I mean, we've seen water temperatures comparable, but this is by far the hottest the water has been. Strange things could happen. That's why I don't want to. It doesn't look like it's going to be that monster, that 4 or 5, but I don't want to discount anything really.
Let's go to one more comment. Barbara, #KJB, why isn't the state of emergency mentioning the counties that are to the east of all this to get the blunt of the storm, or will they update the county list? We probably should have pointed out and emphasized more that there are hurricane watches in effect for many Gulf Coast counties.
I have the watches. Let me put them up. Yeah, to show you where. So these are the hurricane watches. It may just be a matter of time before, if your county's not in it, and I don't know where you are, but it may just be a matter of time before your county is in it.
Yeah. We'll keep you posted, folks. These watches are, they're designed to get your attention. They're designed to get you ready. They're designed to activate resources and to just get everyone sort of prepared, right? I mean, when it upgrades to warning, let's just really quickly point out, Jeff, the difference between a watch and a warning, because we expect hurricane warnings to get issued at some point.
They could get issued as early as tomorrow morning. Yeah. I mean, so they issue watches 48 hours before they expect tropical storm force conditions. And in this case, they issue a hurricane watch 48 hours before they expect hurricane conditions. And then the warnings are issued 36 hours before. Well, if we expect hurricane conditions to start as early as Tuesday evening, it's conceivable that Monday morning, tomorrow morning, when you wake up, we might already start seeing hurricane warnings issued. Folks, it's going to move fast. It's going to move real fast.
Yeah, I think that is a relief, because if it was the opposite, if this storm was going to expect it to move very, very, very slowly,
it'd be agonizing.
Oh, yeah.
It'd be an agonizing week.
Yeah, but really, Monday is a day, I think, Jeff, it's fair to say that we are going to be watching for this to emerge in the Gulf and to get maybe hurricane status.
That's the forecast right now. Let me show the cone one more time, and then, before we finish the stream, just wait.
Yep.
This will be updated, by the way, at 11, and you can catch it on Channel 8, News Channel 8. Yeah. We will have it immediately as soon as it comes out. Okay, but here we are. This is Tuesday, 2 a.m. So it emerges into the Gulf Monday afternoon, becomes a hurricane Monday night, okay? Then it gets close to hurricane Category 2 status, not quite. You can see it's still a 1 west of Fort Myers. But when it's passing Fort Myers, Sarasota, and Tampa, it's likely to become a 2 again. Just because it doesn't say 2 doesn't mean it's not a 2. It's just that there are only 12-hour increments in the National Hurricane Center cones. So it's either what it is at 12, within that 12 hours. If it changed, it doesn't reflect on this map. But it will as soon as it reaches the next 12-hour, which is right here. And there it is as a 2. But notice the winds are 100. The cutoff for a 2 is 90-mile-an-hour winds. So therefore, it did that somewhere west of Pinellas County or west of Sarasota County or Manatee County.
And all the questions that we get about, will it hit my neighborhood? Will it hit my house on my street? Those questions will become more clear into Tuesday. Tuesday is really the day that we get an idea as to where this is going to go. And then we're looking early Wednesday at a potential landfall event. But really quickly, Jeff, just the reason I was smirking there for a second, can you back this graphic up a little bit? Because this is just me asking this question as a point of curiosity. Is there any chance that the National Hurricane Center would declare a landfall event if the center of circulation goes over the western tip of Cuba? Because that could happen
Sure.
in the hours ahead.
Yeah. It's a good point that you make. Let me see where they put it right now.
Because right now,
they do
look
put
at
it.
that.
They kind of try to put it over. Yeah, it's not going to matter. Just so you know,
won't
it's not
matter.
going to influence the structure of the storm because it's a fairly narrow area and it's not very mountainous. But yeah, that would be considered a landfall.
Yeah, because look at this. I don't know if we can see if we really zoom in there, folks, but the western tip of Cuba is kind of right. Really, the point is right there under the center.
It seems to go over it, but barely.
That would be very interesting if they declared.
It would be a landfall as long as the center passes over that tip.
Very interesting. Yeah. Well, folks, we're going to monitor all things Idalia over the coming days here on Tracking the Tropics. We are an interactive effort here at WFLA in the Stream Center in Tampa, Florida, as part of WFLA, your NBC station, home of the Max Defender 8 weather team, of course, led by Max Defender 8 Chief Meteorologist Jeff Biunno, who lent us his time and his expertise for approximately, my goodness, Jeff, we've been on stream for more than 2 hours now, just answering as many questions as possible.
2 hours? Holy cow.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. We started at
Not
8.
quite 2 hours. It feels like it, though.
No. So an hour and a half. An hour and a half. It's gonna be many hours of coverage in the days ahead.
I got to give credit to Eric because he was live and you too, live for like what? I think
18 hours?
Something like that.
We took breaks,
I don't know I don't know how you do it. My brain is already fried and it's been an hour and a half.
Yeah. Ian is, it was one where we were just monitoring every little development. But we'll be doing the same with Idalia here. And so our coverage, I believe we want to tentatively say it is going to be resuming tomorrow morning at 9:30 Eastern. 9:30 Eastern, so less than 12 hours from now. We're going to pick up our coverage tomorrow with some of the other meteorologists on the Max Defender 8 weather team. Jeff, before we wrap things up, anything else that you want to share on the stream while we have an audience of...
Take it seriously. Yeah, take it seriously. If you're told to evacuate. I mean, the thing about the West Coast is our storm surge is twice as bad as it is in most other places. Gulf of Mexico is notorious for big storm surge. Even if the storm doesn't seem very strong, it can still produce a ton of storm surge. So be really careful. Don't take it seriously. There are a lot of people who died in Ian because they didn't take it seriously.
People who say, "Oh, it's a Cat 1, maybe a Cat 2," and they say that with an eye roll, and they're like, "Oh my goodness, we're not gonna. We've seen worse in Florida. Well, not if you really live in Tampa Bay, because Tampa Bay has really been unscathed for your graphic demonstrated history shows us that we have gotten very, very lucky in years past. But just because, folks, it is not that Cat 3, Cat 4, Cat 5 storm doesn't mean you don't take it seriously. Pack your hurricane supplies and have conversations with your family to be ready. But if that's going to do it for us, I'm JB Biunno alongside Max Defender 8 Chief Meteorologist Jeff Biunno. All of your resources, models, storm updates, hurricane watches and warnings, everything that you need to know about Idalia and our coverage plan going forward, you can find it on WFLA.com and trackingthetropics.tv on YouTube Live. I know our moderators have been putting in links to helpful resources, including that list of school closures to find out if your school is closed as early as tomorrow. You probably want to check that out. Again, WFLA.com is your home base for all things storm coverage and storm prep here in the state of Florida and beyond. Again, a big thank you to Chief Meteorologist Jeff Biunno, and our coverage will resume tomorrow morning here from the Stream Center in Tampa, Florida. To everybody, have a great night, and we'll see you on the flip side, everyone.
Find Tracking the Tropics on these platforms. And for storm updates, the latest models, and helpful resources, visit trackingthetropics.tv.